Hey everybody, it is Monday. It's 7 o'clock. So that means it's time to go inside marriage.
Yes. So for some of us, it is date night. Uh-oh.
You're just too distractible.
I'm always distracted.
Just
so anyway, for some of us, it's date night. So here we are again with you all on our Monday date night. And so thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. It's date night?
It's date night.
Oh, that's...
So thank you for joining us again, Mike and Wendy
I
Perry,
want
Inside
totally
Marriage. Okay. Inside Marriage. So what are we talking about tonight? So we debated about this. We kind of went around and around, and we decided to talk about control. So this will be Control Part 1. Hey, Dexter Peggins. Thanks for joining us.
What's up?
Control Part 1. So Control will probably have 4 parts, but we're getting into Part 1 tonight. And what did we say we were doing for Part 1?
Well, Part 1, I mean, we want to kind of talk about whether or not, when we talk about control, right? I mean, I think people have different opinions, varying opinions about what that means. Mm-hmm. And some people's opinions, frankly, are totally off. Hey, Monica Ward.
Hi, Monica Ward Jernigan. Good to see you again this week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're going to kind of talk about, what is control, maybe, right? Is control a problem? Or maybe we're not looking at control at all, and so and I think we need to first slow it down a little bit, just so a few people can get on that I know are coming on. But I think this is important because we won't then. But I say it's an important topic, I think, because I think a lot of folks mischaracterize what's really going on, and they think it's control, or they fall victim to what their friends say or whatever. I mean, when we first we started dating, actually, mm-hmm. certainly in the early years of marriage, then a lot of people would, I say a lot, it's not even a lot. I know there's one or two that would, for you, would say, man, Mike, they probably thought I was like over controlling.
Yeah.
And so you can speak more to why that was maybe than I can.
Yeah, I mean, just from my perspective of it. So before I do, Michelle Moore Wilson, thanks for joining us, and everybody that's on with us tonight. So, yes, in terms of control, mm-hmm. we'll define it first. And then we're going to talk control in 4 parts. So if you're just joining us, defining what it means, control in a marriage, or different definitions and perspectives, and then 4 parts. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, you mean 4 parts, like in a 4-part like series type thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, y'all. It's not gonna happen. We will be distracted. Something more tantalizing will come up. We will not last 4. I mean, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna give it the old college try for you. We will not last 4
Perhaps.
Though.
I think some of the areas that we could talk about with mm-hmm. control, as we discussed, is control as it pertains to church and worship.
Yeah.
Control as it pertains to finances.
Certainly.
Control as it pertains to roles.
You're right, Michelle.
I always have my list. As it pertains to work and roles.
Yep.
And then
as it pertains to kids.
And kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's like countless ways. I mean, we could go for like 10. I'm just saying.
Well, I just said we will attempt to make it to 4. So if you're just joining us, we're going with the topic of control. So Mike mentioned that when we first started dating, or early in our relationship, there were people who would often say to me that a few people mentioned they were concerned that he was controlling me. And so, so when he says that, what does that really mean? And so there is a distinction, though, because when we mentor young people and young couples, we often tell them to look out for red flags, mm-hmm. and to be respectful, and to be basically to admonish with wisdom, right? When other mm-hmm. people are saying, hey, we see this person's trying to control you or isolate you, it may be worth listening to. Hi, Kim Aiken.
Hey, Kim.
And so while it is the intent of some people to really make sure that they are preventing you from being taken advantage of, preventing you from being hurt, or preventing you from getting involved with the wrong person. That's not always everyone's intent, right? Sometimes people are not actually sharing wisdom.
Yeah, because you know what? Let's just, if you are in a place where you kind of, you know, hey, you getting your club on, you getting your club on, and you know you having a grand time. Hey, let's go. You're going here, you're going there, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get engaged, you get married, and now you have somebody that you're asking, or you're saying, hey, you know what? I'd like to do this. Do you mind? Do you think it's a good idea if you're bringing somebody else in on your process? Then people will sometimes say, oh man, you know, he's controlling you. You can't tell you what to do, where to go. What? So I think rule number one, if your single friend is telling you something about control, you married, man, cut them off. That's all. I'm done. Thank you.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
I'm just, I mean, that's, I'm only, no, actually, I'm joking, like, you know, a little bit, but that's kind of, in effect, sometimes that's what it can be.
Right. So when we talk about controlling, and you know, we always want to be mindful and always make sure that we're careful, right? Because when you get into a domestic violence situation, which is a very serious situation, there's an aspect of control where it has gone too far. And certainly, while we may talk about those topics at certain times, that's not really what we're talking about tonight. We're really talking about the basis of being controlling within your marriage, what can be misconstrued as going too far, right? Is it really going too far? What is going too far? What does being controlled look like? And is it ever okay? And I think we touched on this last year when we were talking about some different things, and I mentioned how some people try to use the word to control other people in marriage. You remember we talked about that? Okay, so so some people, they use everything that's in their arsenal, right? So I'm older than you, so therefore I know more than you. You should listen to me. I have more. I've been going to church longer than you have, so spiritually I may have more wisdom. So therefore, what I say goes, and so on and so forth. So I could probably continue on the list. Yeah. So what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think clearly that happens. And, you know, it is, you know, there's, I want to say there's a fine line. I don't know if it's a fine line or not, because, you know, there's some things that we know to be, say, like biblical truth. There's some things that apply to our relationship. You know, there's some things that are just good ideas. And then there's some things that just aren't, right, in terms of how much influence. Because ultimately, people make their own decisions. And if you get to the point where the person you're with is not making their own decision, well, you kind of crossed the line at that point, right? Now, you don't have to always like the decision, and it's not just always, hey, this is what I've decided, and that's it. We're done. But, yeah, I mean, I'm saying if it's that, then maybe you have an issue, right?
Yeah.
And so where is the line? When do I stop fighting for my position and say, you know what, okay, I respect what you say, what you're going to do, how you feel, and I'm just going to, you know, suck it up, and this is what it is today. When do you do that, right? Or do you try to, you know, if you're trying to manipulate someone, right? You know, manipulate them with those words, or manipulate them with certain things. That's why I brought up kids earlier, right? Because oftentimes people will try to use kids in ways that to me are just unfair. And so, yeah, there's all kind of things that people call control that actually are, but there are a number of them that they call control that actually are not, right? So some of you may be surprised to know that Wendy has not only a password to this bad boy here, but she also has a fingerprint programmed in there. Is it one or two? It's just one, right?
Yeah, just one.
I mean, Grace, I mean, how many fingerprints does somebody need on someone else's phone, right? That finger right there, right? Now, there are some men out there who would not in a million years ever do that. She ain't gonna control me. Will not have access to my phone, you know, whenever she wants it. I'm of the opinion that that's important. That's an important thing to have in place for so many reasons. I am not above accountability. So accountability is accountability. It's not control, although I think it's perceived that way sometimes.
Yeah. So. But, we could go on and on. I think ideally, when we start these discussions and what we're talking about, we want to really kind of uncover or discuss what you're talking about, right? What does control mean to you, and what is it? How does it manifest within a marriage? I'm often talking about a power struggle, right? The shift of power. Who has the power in the marriage? Is it about having power? And where does power and control come into play, right? And so a couple of things that I heard recently, I can't remember where I heard the first one, but the person was saying that their father told them that you can't get a grown person to do anything that they don't want to do, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, as it pertained to their wife. You could put in a whole lot of effort, but is it true that at the end of the day, one adult cannot make another adult do something that they don't want to do? Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Well, you're asking the people if that's true.
And I'm asking you. Mm-hmm.
That one adult can't make it. Well, I mean,
is that true?
Well, it should be true. But I believe some adults have given that power, I guess. Mm-hmm. They ceded that power, and so they do all kinds of things they don't want to do because they are pressured to do so, because they are manipulated into doing so. They're threatened into doing so. So, yeah, I mean, ideally, generally speaking, hey, you grown. Nobody can make you do anything.
Yes.
But that's not some people's reality, unfortunately. Right. But I know our reality. I can't make this woman do anything, man.
Although he tries.
Goodness. I'm like, man, come on, girl.
He tries. And so that was one thing that I heard. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, and we'll see. So Michelle Moore Wilson says, being transparent is a must. Not that I would want to see what's on my husband's phone, but I would like to know if I needed to use his phone, there's not a problem. Then I would see it as him having something to hide. So, yeah, back to Mike saying that my fingerprint can access his phone and having all access. I think that is a great example of relinquishing control, right? And so...
It's a really great example. I think it's a fantastic example of relinquishing control.
Anyway, fantastic. Hi, Anna Reeves. Right, and Kim White. Glad you could join us again.
Hey, y'all.
Tonight we're talking about control. So relinquishing that control. And so what does that really mean? And we have talked about before that within a marriage, nothing should be off limits. There should be nothing that either of us can't see, right? If I go on his laptop, there's nothing hidden from my access. If I go on his phone, there's nothing on there that potentially would cause a problem, and vice versa, right? And so when we find ourselves living lives where there's something to hide, then there's something else that we need to do, right? At that point, if you're hiding something, what do you think about that?
I mean,
However, Shonda wear that while Mike thinks about the question I just asked.
I mean, if you're hiding something,
yes.
Listen. I mean, I don't know what you need to do. I mean, I could say you need to go ahead and come clean, I suppose. But people they hide things for various reasons, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important to. Well, listen. Let me. Many of you, I'm sure, have been in places where you've hidden things, right? Oftentimes people hide things. Why do we hide them? A couple of reasons. Well, because we want whatever we're doing to go unrevealed so we can continue to do it. Mm-hmm. Or something has occurred and we are afraid of the consequences of what will happen if the truth comes to light. Mm-hmm. So we hide that. I mean, those are like the biggies. And I guess I could kind of create some other ones, but I mean, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it. If there's something that you're doing that is not right and you're hiding it, you're dead wrong. You need to get it together, right? That can be hard to do. But all of us need somebody that we trust. I'm talking somebody outside of even, a friend that you trust that's outside of that marriage, right? Like, and I'm talking men, a male friend that you trust, women, another woman that you trust, that you can be straight up 100% honest with about what's going on. Somebody who has the courage to speak the truth to you, right?
Yes.
And so, because that person should know like everything, right? About, what you might be doing, right? Because I always recommend have somebody that you can kind of kick some of these things off of. Somebody that's going to tell you the truth, though, because they want to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
If they're going to tell you the truth, you need to be able to listen and hear that, right? If you got somebody who's not telling you the truth or somebody who's not going to check you, then you need to X them off the friend list. I'm just saying. So, but when you say what to do if you're hiding something, I'm not really sure what you're looking for, because if folks are, that's a toughie. And when you reveal, because the fear one is the one, right? When that there's an issue, and we kind of like almost diving into something else. But when there's an issue and you are afraid of what the consequences are, that person can be very difficult to move because they know that they're wrong, but they're afraid of losing everything.
And so then it's controlled by omission.
Well, in effect, it's like because you control it. Well, that's interesting you say that. So is it you're controlling somebody because you don't give them the freedom of choice? Is that what you're basically saying? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Y'all agree? I
think it's controlled by omission. I think if you're not giving that person the freedom of choice, the option to select or choose your truth over, the truth over the situation, then you are controlling in that situation. And so, hi, Jeff. Glad you're here.
Hey.
And Michelle, you're right. You should not hide anything. But let's be real. There are things that we hide from the people that we're married to. And so before I get to what we hide and being real about it, it sounds like what you're describing is an accountability partner.
Yep.
And so the thing about selecting an accountability partner, because, everything, y'all know I grew up in D.C., right? Or I was born in D.C. It always comes back to me where people say, it was wisdom, do not tell anybody outside of your marriage all of the intimate details of your marriage, because now you're informing now they're not objective, right? They become a kind of a subjective party to what's happening, right? And so the way that story goes is if your best friend or that person knows everything that's going on, then there's opportunity. And so I kind of throw that in there too. And so address that for me. Talk a little bit about that.
Let's address that. And so, I recognize you got to watch your words, be precise in your language, right?
Yes.
Because it's not about every single thing. What I'm suggesting is that a good accountability partner is somebody that you can, if you're struggling with the right thing to do, what to do, whatever, that's somebody you can say, hey, you know what, dude, I'm struggling. And that person actually, when you talk about whose side they take, the person that is my ideal accountability partner is going to take the side of what the word says. Right?
Yes.
And so that person is going to, because, and it's happened where, I'm like, man, whatever, this is foolish, this is crazy. And they're like absorbing it, like, okay. And then they hit you with something very simple, right? Okay, well, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, listen, I'm not don't hit me with all of that. I ain't trying to hear no Bible tonight, man. Just let me complain. Right?
Wow.
But they don't necessarily let you get away with that. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm talking about. Not somebody that's be like, yeah, man, you right. Whatever. I don't, honestly, give me that for 10 seconds. But generally, the right person is going to bring that thing around in a way that's going to really challenge you to be and do what you know is right. So that's what I mean.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you're just joining us, we're talking about control within marriage. This is the first part of control, where we're just going control in general, but we're going to do 4 parts, and I'm going to make sure we do 4 parts. So Gloria, we see you tonight. Gloria. Thank you for joining us.
Said 4 parts. Okay,
but we are. And so in general, control within a marriage. And so then from that, we were talking about what when people hide things in marriage and wish that things should not be hidden. But then we talked about accountability and having it or identifying an accountability partner, as it were. Someone who is not afraid to call you on the mat, call out your BS, hold you truthful and honest, but someone who brings it to you with wisdom from the word, right?
Yeah. And you said BS. Ooh, no, BS. We have to beat that. Can we say that on
yes.
Facebook Live? Okay.
I didn't say.
Okay.
Okay, yes. So, if it is BS, it's BS, and you know what BS stands for. And so, because this is no BS. But okay, so having an accountability partner. Yeah. Now, here's the thing, right? Because the idea is if you have somebody that you can kind of run things past and you're talking to them about, okay, well, there's this thing or there's an issue or whatever it is that I'm not being truthful or forthcoming with, you're seeking advice, right? So is that someone who should know both of you? Is it someone who needed to know you before you were married? Doesn't matter.
I don't know about that. That varies. I mean, the knowing both of you part, I think it's important. Mm-hmm. They're like a couple of friends. I have a short list of close friends who kind of everybody who I'm going to be really transparent with knows Wendy like pretty well, actually. And so I think that's kind of important, I think, right? I mean, if we're talking about family stuff, it seems like you would kind of know my family, I think, I don't know. So, that's my opinion. But
just
anyway,
a question.
But you said we're going to define control. I don't know if there's been a control definition.
Right. Well, in general, that's what we've been discussing up to this point.
We've been discussing,
throwing out some things. So how would you define it, Carletta Braden? I'm so glad you were able to get with us on that Eastern Standard Time this week. We missed you last week, but glad you get tuned in.
Okay, so
no, she last week she realized she was on Central Time.
That's right.
So yes, yes, Gloria, you're right. Someone who is also married and is in the Word.
And in the Word,
that is key.
Key distinction, right? Because there are a lot of people. We all know if y'all know who you are. There are a lot of people I've called friends, not necessarily in the Word though, and we don't, we don't really kick it that much. I love them. But these are not the folks that I believe are going to be necessarily providing the best advice, Yeah. So I just don't, and no need to ask. I don't think you need a dozen people in your life that you're confiding in when you need to, right? So, and on today's topic, because really you need like one, right? But on today's topic, there are a lot of those people in your life that are going to say, listen, you know what? Don't let her control you. Don't give her your phone. Don't let her control you. You get home when you get home. Whatever. Don't, call in. I don't have to call in. I'm grown. All that foolishness. Come on, man.
Oh, yeah. I'm a grown woman.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I wasn't going to say it.
Okay. You just went in there kind of strong. I didn't know. I didn't know.
No, this is PG for the most part. Daniel Latimer.
Hey,
I'm so
Daniel.
glad you were able to join us tonight. And so you're right. We happen to have accountability partners who are a married couple. Yeah. And so it is helpful to know that even when I talk to the woman, that she does not share, or at least it's not apparent, that she shares everything that we discuss with her husband, but she always gives me godly wisdom. And I think it's the same. Yeah. Mike often talks to the husband.
Yeah.
They have been married almost twice as long as we have. And we, you kind of want to interview your accountability, right? You want to know where they're coming from, if they're in the Word, what their track record is, and their character, right? You really want to spend some time carefully selecting the people that you allow to advise you or mentor you in your life. Like us, we're an open book. What we put out here every Monday, A lot of it is based on our experience and our knowledge, but a lot of it is because we have a heart for God first and a heart for marriage. And so our position is that we like to just share and have a conversation. Yeah. But we are certainly not set up to be your accountability in a public forum like this.
Right. And by the way, and having said that, we don't come as because when you mention the word knowledge, I want to be clear, we don't come as the expert with all the answers to all of the things that we discuss. I mean, we kind of condense this thing down into, less than an hour segment, some very complex things. Yes. And so it's not about what the right answer is like that. I mean, we certainly have kind of go down some things we believe might be helpful sometimes. However, it's not. We don't come as the end all be all. Certainly, that is not how we want to present ourselves. So
right. So we're your friends, but we're not your accountability partners per se, unless and I mean, we actually have that relationship.
Right, and you know it. If we do, then
some
of
y'all that is true. Okay, yeah, and so as we digress.
But by the way, if you're kind of if you have an accountability partner that has not really kind of gotten on your nerves with that accountability from time to time, like, man, look, stop for real, then you need a new one.
Yes. Well, there are a couple points that are brought up, right? So Kim Aiken, I appreciate your comment, and I want to make sure that we get to your comment, and because I think it's important. And also, Lakeisha, I'm so glad you were able to join us. We know how busy you are with school.
Hey,
it brings up a really good point. Because we had a recent experience, right, where there's a couple who actually identified their accountability in different places, and in this particular situation, they were at different churches.
Yes,
and so that's a topic that we're going to talk about in the future as well, but at different churches. And so where she was seeking out wisdom from people at her church, he was seeking out wisdom from people at his church. And they did not always mesh, right? They were not always in concert. And so I think it's interesting, the question that Lakeisha poses in that, does the partner have to approve? I mean, does the husband or wife have to approve who the partner is?
Well, I'm going to say, I don't know if you have to. I'll just say in my situation, in my circumstance, if there's somebody who Wendy finds to be... If there's something, whatever is going on, Wendy has a very kind of discerning type thing going on. If there's something going on with somebody, even if I don't necessarily see it, I may be prone to pull back a bit, because if it makes her uncomfortable, I don't know how I can just kind of dive in to that if it makes her uncomfortable. And so if there's a person, if there's something about what they say, what their presence is or whatever, then that actually will limit my relationship with other people. That's just because... Think about it, right? Why would I jeopardize this relationship for some dude out there, for some woman, whoever? Whatever. For anybody, ain't happening, right? And so, if Wendy finds somebody to be repulsive, creepy, strange, whatever, then it's going shady, right? It's going to limit our relationship, and certainly any input that I'm gonna. Not only that I get from them, but things I'm going to share with that person. So that's I don't know if is that a cop-out type answer? I think
a little bit. A little bit. So Anna Reeves, thanks for joining us, and Pastor Stephen Thompson, all the way from the chilly way up there in Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us. So here's what I think about that, right? It may not be necessary for you to vet who the person is, but you do need to be sensitive to what they're saying, right? And so if it is apparent that the advice that's being given is detrimental to your relationship, right? It is not resulting in bringing you closer. It's not resulting in a change of behavior, or, not that Mike changes to do what I want. That's not necessarily what I'm getting at. But when I know that what's being poured in is not positive, and it seems like he's moving further away from me than closer to me, then I'm going to ask the question, where is this coming from? Who, and you kind of want to know, who's advising you in this way, or is this just you, right? Yeah. Where is that coming from? You got to be able to call it out, because I don't want to miss an opportunity to say that the first accountability and one mode of accountability is each other.
That's right.
Right? And so I don't just ignore him, let him off the hook, and call somebody on the phone, tell them everything that's going on without addressing it or giving him an opportunity to be held accountable. Not accountable to me, but accountable by me. Does that make sense?
No. I mean, is it a distinction without a difference? I mean, I don't know. It's just the accountability is there, whatever it is. And so, but I think your point is well taken. It is, because a lot of folks, people know everything. Like, it's like there's a running dialogue of what's happening, right? And that is not helpful. But you just kind of know in those moments when a conversation is necessary, right? But absolutely, your first accountability is at home. Right? Yes. And so with your wife, with your husband, we got to be able to kind of get to that place where that, and in fact, most of that, and I want y'all to, because we haven't really kind of given it any weight in terms of how much communication may be external. Like, 98.8% of my communication, of my working through whatever, is right here with Wendy, right? And so it is 98.8. maybe 99.
I think that kind of.
Yeah. So I mean, okay. but it's not like, hey, tell me what to do, right?
Yes.
Because you got to work that thing out at home.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's really important.
Yeah.
But that whoever, if anybody is speaking into you though, it has to be consistent with the word, like all the time.
Yes.
Right. There are no caveats. There are no conditions, right? This whole idea of like forgiveness, for example, right? A lot of people will try to tell you, hey, you know what? Yeah, you can forgive, but she got to blank first, right? Yeah, you can forgive, but he got to do X, Y, and Z. That's not how it works, people. If anybody tells you that, cut them off. They're wrong for you. That's just it. So
yes, well, one of the things I said we would get back to Kim Aiken's comment, and then we're going to come to your comment, Daniel, and Gloria. Thanks for encouraging us. Positive reconciliation is a great way to describe that. And so Kim talked about challenging and speaking in love is a plus, and Monica also said that the accountability, the admonishment, the correction does need to be in love, right? It cannot come from a place of being selfish, and it cannot be self-serving, whether that's the person holding you accountable or your spouse. And so when we talk about speaking in love, it is not about manipulating the situation to get my way. It is not about control or controlling it so that the outcome is favorable only if you get your way. And so I mentioned that there were two things that I saw, and I shared one with you. The other one is actually, I think, is from the book Fight Fair, and that's, we'll of course include that link. But it said, if when you fight, you're always fighting to win, then what you end up with is being married to a loser. Isn't that interesting?
That's interesting.
So I thought that was good. And so I say that
Nobody wants to be married to a loser.
I say that to say that if you're always trying to control someone and all of your effort is in controlling what they do, how they think, where they go, what they say, what they wear, their decisions, how things are done, then what you end up with is not an individual. You end up with someone that you've controlled, and basically not a clone, but a smaller, maybe different version of you. And is that what we really want? And so, so Kim says, speaking in love, even when you are speaking in knowledge, right? Because we do have the opportunity and the ability to discern and know when different things are happening. And it's so easy to say, I am so tired of hearing about Bob at work. This is what you need to do. I'm so tired of hearing about so-and-so. This is what you need to do. It's so easy to fall into that. But being patient, being loving in the way that you approach those things. And ladies, I always remind And I want to remind you, because I have to remind myself, that it is not my job to tell Mike what to do. It is not my job to tell him how to handle the situations that he's in. Now, do I offer my opinion? Do I share my perspective? Absolutely. But it is not my job to tell this man how to be a man or how to live his life. And so you have to be careful with how you share what you share. And so neither one of us is saying that you don't say anything, right? Yeah. But what we're saying is that you need to give some careful thought to what you share, and really the sentiment with which you share it. Everything should be shared in love. And so
that's what I like about what Kim's, because if you kind of read down into Kim's comment, she toward the end she says, reminding him who he is in Christ and give him pointers on how he can handle things and come out feeling like Zeus, right? So so that accountability is interesting. What the word does actually is give you a lot of the tools to have some type of and we're talking that internal accountability between each other right now, right? What does the word say about you? What does the word say about who you are to us and all that stuff, right? Yes. That can be very it can be empowering, and it can also nudge you in a way that maybe just somebody just tell, hey, do this, do that. No, what do you remember? Because even Wendy will ask me a lot of times, right? It's very simple, it's very subtle, but I'm like struggling with something, this is crazy, and and she'll be like, hey, did you pray about it? Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's only 4:15 today, and I know we're supposed to pray without ceasing, but I got busy. So but that right there, that is not control. That's accountability, right? Like what do you believe, right? And so if you believe what you say you believe, what are you doing in that direction, right? Yeah. So that's not using any type of manipulation whatsoever.
Right, right. And so back to, thank you. Back to what Daniel was asking. Yes, and so, when you get into, and Davis Brown, thank you for joining us. Glad you're able to be with us tonight and not doing one of the 5 million things you're always busy doing. Give our love to Lisa. So, Daniel, so is having an outside person you vent to concerning your issues inside your relationship healthy? And should your partner know the person you vent to? So, what say you? Maybe I'll let you talk first on this one.
Okay.
I will relinquish control.
She lying, y'all. Anyway, so I will say sometimes and absolutely. So, for example, what you say? What is it? Is that you should? No, go ahead. I don't know. You said
I just
you
said,
grown.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I didn't know which kind of that was, but okay. So, for example, and so if some of y'all, if you were watching from last season, I guess is it last season? I don't know, but before then, and some of y'all know us. Y'all know our story, and so one of our worst nights ever. When Wendy rolled out, took my truck, threw the phone out that night. You're standing there in your house by yourself and you think it might be over. What do you do? Right? And so I called probably the only person I would have called and probably, ever in a circumstance like that. And that was my father. Right? And so my father didn't have a running, narrative of what's happening, in our marriage. But that night, my dad, I needed somebody to know. Somebody who maybe had been in my shoes and could walk me out of that a little bit, maybe pray with me, maybe just support me and help me to recognize that as bad as I felt and as big of a mistake I made, that I was going to be okay and we could be okay. So that's why I say sometimes it is healthy. Sometimes it's not, because people will take that energy and they will put all the energy to telling the story, right, to somebody else instead of putting the energy into fixing things at home.
I am so glad you said that, because I think that's where I was going. That's why I was making a note. Can I say this right now?
I'm gonna relinquish control back to Wendy, to the lady to my right.
So, as it pertains to this specific question and what you were describing, right? Because here's where you should be alerted that your attention may be in the wrong place, that you have shifted control to the wrong person. And I'll say is, if you ever find that you are giving priority, attention, or preference to someone who is not the person that you're married to.
Come on, girl. Say so.
Then that is a key indicator that maybe, you didn't select the right accountability partner, right? That you're missing something in that. So when we talked about holding each other accountable, now, I am not going to say that I know everything that Mike is thinking and, all his thoughts, all his activities, everything that he's ever done. I don't want to know. There's some things I want to know, and what I want to know, I ask, but I don't want to know all of it. That's just me. And you have to decide what works for you. But what I will say is that no one else should know more than me.
That's good. That's right. 100%.
Yeah. And so when you get into having someone outside, does a person have to approve, or having an outside person concerning your issues, is it healthy? It can be, but just be careful and be mindful that, again, that person is, bringing you back to the Word, giving you godly wisdom, that person is, of course, referring you back to the Word. Mm-hmm. So they can use the Word in their guidance, but they also need to hold you and bring you back to the Word. Mm-hmm. And then also that they have both of your best interests in hand.
That's right. That they're deflecting you back, and they asking the question, okay, so what you gonna do?
Yes.
What are you gonna do? And yes. So and what a good friend of mine does, the folks that Wendy was talking about earlier, he'll actually say, I'm gonna call you next week to see how things are going, to see if you actually are following through. Yes, right? That's accountability, and that's just that is not just going and whining and crying into the wind and complaining about things and I got that off my chest. No, no, because if there's something happening, there is no letting it just fade away. You got to kind of deal with yourself, right? You got to deal with that thing, and so I think a good accountability partner does that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, it's one of those things. So when you go to your husband or wife and they say something to you that you don't like you are being a complete and total jerk right now, that is not the time to run to your accountability partner and check in and say, I don't think I'm being a jerk. What do you think? We don't care what they think. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about, building up your team and your support on your side so that you are then geared up and ready to go back in. It's like going to your separate corners during a boxing match.
And that's actually
not what we're talking about.
And that actually can be a means of trying to control, right? Like, what, such and such said, and da-da-da. And it's like everybody else said this and that. Mm-hmm. Nobody care what everybody else said. Everybody else, well, I was about to take this PG-13, but no, I'm just saying. Everybody else can just shut it, right? Yes. So, but the final part of his question is, should your partner know who you vent to?
Right. Well, that's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, that's a tough one, right? I think that
answer the question.
That you have to trust your partner to make the right decision. And so I don't know that it's a requirement. I can just say that I appreciate that I know at least one person that Mike talks to. I can't say that I know everybody that he talks to, but I know the one, and I approve of the one. Does that mean that he can't choose someone that I don't approve of? I mean, that kind of gets into that area, but I think, and I can share that it is extremely helpful for us to know who that other person is and that they know us, right? And so I have no question in my mind that John Russell is going to steer this man in the right direction. And he's not going to just do and tell him what he thinks is going to keep him out of the doghouse or keep him in good graces. He's going to tell him what a godly man would do. And so from that perspective, it is helpful. But I don't know. What do you say?
Yeah. Well, first of all, he's not going to necessarily just tell you. He's going to let you wrestle with it, right? My goodness. Yes. He's going to ask you, what would a godly man do? I mean, just for example, right? And so, because the answers are typically clear if we can clear our head enough to accept their answer, right?
Yes.
And so, but I think that under the circumstance which would, cause someone to kind of be, sharing and kind of seeking some wisdom, I think it's helpful to know, because you got to think about, it's not, and this, we're not even talking like a right or wrong thing. Step back for a second and think about how your wife might feel, how your husband might feel. If, you know what, I need to talk to such and such, and they're talking to such and such, but you have no idea who that is. I don't know. That just doesn't quite feel right to me. It wouldn't feel right for me to actually be doing that, because to me, in order to maintain the level of trust and transparency and comfort, I want women to be comfortable about who I'm dealing with. And so if it makes her uncomfortable, or if it makes her if she doesn't know, well, that's kind of a problem. I don't know how I feel about that. Well, to me, that's a problem. And so I'm not.
Wait a minute.
What?
Let me tell you what I would have a problem with.
Okay, let's go.
That his accountability partner cannot be a woman.
Well, we said that earlier.
I know, but it just came back up, so it must still just be kind of sitting there.
sitting where with who? Who's it sitting with? Somebody out there.
Blame it on Monday. If you're just joining us, we're talking about control. I'm just saying, let me say this for the record, because, there's what I said was there should be no closer relationship, and that I should be first. I don't think I explicitly said that your accountability partner shouldn't be a woman.
Well, I can tell you this, people.
We didn't say that before.
Okay, but it's okay. Or maybe
that was said.
I said that specifically. I like explicit. Roll the tape.
Yeah, roll it on replay.
Roll that tape. Roll that replay. But
there's a reason for that.
Yeah, because I will mess around and hurt somebody. That's why. Okay,
so we're going to get out of our feelings.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm sorry.
And stay on point. So the point is that I don't need to go to another man to ask another man about how men think, right? Or about how Mike thinks. I need to go to Mike to ask Mike about what he thinks and how he feels and his perspective and all those things. And so that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Oh, yeah. So, that I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off, but hey, listen, y'all. And I know there's somebody out here that does that. Do not call your sister, your auntie, your mom, or whatever and ask about how women think.
Oh.
Stop.
Okay.
What?
Thanks, Lakeisha.
He did say it had to be a man. Thank you very much.
But he didn't say that it had to be a woman for the woman.
Yeah, I did. But do we have to verify? Anyway, my point is, stop asking your aunties and your women friends, whatever, about how women think. Figure out how your wife thinks.
Yes, that's where the work comes in. That's where the work comes in.
Right, and so we call it work, and we talk about, hey, it takes a lot of work. I don't know. We don't always talk about what the work is. The work is learning, always learning about what's going on in your house, right? And the process never stops.
It never stops, never ending.
It's ongoing, never ending.
It's ongoing. It is. Yeah. You have to commit to your marriage daily.
Yeah.
And we could make it minute by minute, but you get the point. It is a commitment, and people talk about recommitting and rededicating and all that, but it is truly a commitment, a decision. Yes. To commit to the work every day.
Yeah, and commitment is not control, right? Gwen Washington? Was that who it was?
Yes, commitment is not control.
And
Noni
accountability. Sorry.
Noni Barnes, thanks for joining us. And Gwen Washington, we're so glad you made it back safely from Kenya. We were praying for you guys and secretly wanting to be there with you on safari. So I'm glad you could join us tonight.
We were coveting your Africa trip. They're like lions and tigers and all kinds of stuff. That was crazy.
Okay. So back to what you were saying.
No, I'm just saying accountability, not control.
Yes.
Right?
Accountability, not control.
Commitment, not control.
Commitment,
right?
not control.
Because everybody has to answer to somebody. I have no problem whatsoever answering to Wendy. Right? Where are you? What are you doing? Etc. Right? Except when I'm not doing nothing and I'm sitting like right there on the couch. Like, what you doing? I'm sitting here. I'm not doing anything.
Well, I mean, and then that goes into, well, what are you thinking? Which we could probably talk. That's what we should talk about next week. The question of what are you thinking?
Do you have to answer that question?
Oh my goodness!
Is it a fair question to even ask somebody?
Not
what
we're thinking? Talking about tonight.
Okay.
So tonight, as we close this thing out, or prepare to close this thing out, and again, we're always thankful when you all are able to join us on Mondays at 7 for a look inside marriage, and a frank discussion, a real discussion about some of the things that we grapple with, that we learn from, and that we and how we learn to love in marriage every week. And as much as we can, we try to make sure that what we are sharing is in accordance with the Word, right? And so this is an extension of our ministry effort and our hearts. And so we appreciate that you're able to join us.
And sometimes, and a lot of you all are in the Word. And sometimes, if you want a scripture and a study, this is not quite a study, right? This is kind of like real applied. It is kind of trying to live the Word out, right? And so, maybe there will be a study one day, but you can't do everything at one time. But we want to just have some real conversations. And with everywhere that we go, everything that we talk about, these are things, we've experienced a lot of it. We've seen a lot of it. We talk to folks about a lot of these things.
Yes.
And so you'll find that we end up all over the place. Why? Because, that's just kind of how it is, right? Even at home, y'all know sometimes you start in one place and you over here because all these things are connected in a lot of ways. They
are connected, and even for us. And so here's what you'll get from us every week. We're honest, we're open, and it's real time. We will make every effort not to hide anything, because every day for us is not, smiles and sunshine. And as a good friend of mine would say, rainbows and unicorns. It's hard. And what we've found is that we actually find some accountability in sharing with you, right? And so thank you for being a sounding board for us and keeping us honest. Yeah. But facial expressions say a lot. Yes, Anna Reeves, great point. And we invite all of you, before you leave us tonight, to let us know what you want us to talk about. And she says, we need to talk about, how do you get a husband to talk who's not a talkative person?
That's interesting.
So that's a great topic.
Yeah,
great topic.
Because I'm not. I need you to. How do you do that? Because I'm not very.
So we want you to drop it in the comment box. Of course, we always want you to share this with someone that you think may benefit from something that we've said. We always want your ideas. So between Mondays, send us your ideas. Send us a couple of comments. Call us. Text us. IM us about different ideas and different topics that you want us to tackle. So what you got?
Oh, nothing. I was just that was a fairly long comment. I was trying to see it, but I cannot.
Oh, okay. So, Kim Aiken, we're gonna hit this one before we close out for tonight.
You get the final.
Yes, and so she says, I've been in situations where when I had a male accountability partner and naive thinking, it was completely fine, but I will say the flesh is still the flesh. Amen. The word says no good thing in this flesh. So I'm listening and then begin to see how he answers and then how it goes south. And I had to cut it, nip it. So it is not good to have the opposite sex as an accountability partner. So amen. And, you are so right. And that's where, we talked about really kind of cautioning when you're seeking that outside counsel, right? Because people can always and often, it's human nature to see it as opportunity. I see your hurts. I empathize with your pain or whatever, and I'm here to support you and listen to you. But if that person is listening to you more than you're listening, or the person who you're married to is listening to you, then it becomes a conflict. And it's just like anything else, whether it's social media, whether it's television, whether it's being on your phone playing games. There is nothing that should take priority or precedence over the person that you have committed and agreed and covenant to share the rest of your life with. So, I'm reminding Mike often about this is our new thing, first fruits, right? Years ago, I would say to him, I don't want what you have left at the end of the day. I want your best, not what you have left. And so if you can share your first fruits, right, your best, who your energy at its highest point, your best thoughts, your best feelings, your smiles, and all that with the person that you're married to first, I think that you will see a huge and positive impact on your relationship. Because if it's always, I'm frowning at you, but I'm smiling at them, that doesn't work.
And let me kind of give you my perspective on this scene, because there are a lot of people who will see this, and a lot of people I've talked to is like, oh no, I've known this person forever, and it's fine and it's good, and they would never listen. So we talk about people taking advantage, right? And sometimes that's not how it happens, right? Because there is a vulnerability when it comes to really sharing with somebody. There's a vulnerability there. There's kind of an opening up there. And I'm about to give you all a news flash that nobody's probably ever given you. So buckle your seatbelts. Are you ready? You ready? Right? In fact, the person that you married is not the only person that you're capable of falling in love with.
Oh, wow. Say that again.
The person that you married is not the only person that you are capable of falling in love with. Now, that's a tough pill to swallow, but that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And so what you need to do once you're married is to begin to build a fortress around your marriage, right? And so the word talks about, guarding your heart, right? Guarding your mind. Because if you allow someone of the opposite sex, if you begin to kind of break those barriers down and you become vulnerable, right? There's this sharing that happens. And the next thing you know, there's this feeling like, what is this feeling I'm feeling? Well, you've shared all this stuff with somebody, right? And they share it with you. And so naturally a connection happens there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
that's big. And so it's not always people that are trying to be predators. Sometimes people just find themselves way too close, right? Closer than they should have ever gotten in the first place.
And that's true. And you have to let them in, though, and that is the key.
Yeah.
So that's big. So we definitely need to end on that. I do want to thank Barbara Jean Smith Roberts for joining us.
Barbara Jean, tell her to say what's up.
Yeah, but that was good. So make sure you drop your comments in on some suggestions. Can you put up that last one for us? Your comments in for suggestions for topics. We'll be looking out for those. We'll try to incorporate those. Join us here on Facebook Live on Mondays at 7. Please like and follow our page, any of our pages, all of our pages.
We have too many pages.
I know. Stay connected. As always, we count it a blessing that you spent a little bit of time with us. So you have any parting comments, Mike Perry?
No, my only parting comment would be, I said no and then I have a comment, right? But no, just, hey, you know what? We believe, we always talk about marriage being hard work, and it is. But we believe that your married days can be the absolute best days of your life.
Yes.
Even no matter what you've been through, if you can kind of allow God to work on you, then you can have, even today, no matter what you've been through, you can still have the best marriage you've ever seen.
Did you say work on you?
That's right. You. I didn't say work on her, right? Obviously, that you would naturally say that, but I think we got to check ourselves first, because if we're doing what we need to do, everything falls into place.
Yes,
whoever you be, you is.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week on Monday. Have a safe week.
Bye.
Bye.